Here they are. Candidate number 1, Faith Odhiambo. She's an advocate. She's the current vice president of the LSK. She has 13 years experience, and her fields of law include commercial, competition, telecommunications, financial, and banking. She's a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Next up, we've got Peter Wanyama, 16 years experience. His specialty includes policy review, legislative drafting, and law review. His fields of law include agriculture, public procurement, telecommunications, and energy. Next, Caroline Kamende Daudi, former vice president of the LSK. She's the chair of the African Bar Association Kenya Forum. She has 18 years experience. Also, fields of law includes commercial, criminal, constitutional, and judicial review. Next, Dr. Benjamin Kipkoech Ngetich. He has 15 years experience. Fields of law include constitutional and human rights, company, criminal, land, and environmental law, as well as banking law. And finally, Harriet Njoki Boshe. She's a council member of the LSK. She has 8 years experience. Fields of law include maritime law, and she's a course instructor at the University of Nairobi. Those are our 5 candidates. Again, the bench is split in 2 tonight. On the main bench in Studio A, we've got the outgoing president of the LSK, Eric Theory, and right next to him is senior counsel Paul Mwangi. They are our experts tonight. They'll be listening in on what's happening in Studio B, right next door, where my colleague Sam Gitugu is standing by with all the 5 presidential candidates. Sam, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for that introduction. Of course, the 5 are all here. I won't go into reintroducing them. I'll just go straight to the questions. I want to begin with you, Harriet, because you're one of the youngest, actually the youngest in terms of experience, that you've been an advocate of the High Court. But it's a simple question that I wanted to respond in about a minute or so. Why do you want to be the president of the Law Society of Kenya?
I'll start by encouraging all the young people in this country. It is important that as young people we take up leadership. It is beautiful that the LSK has actually had a president in their 20s. I'm in my late 30s. I am certainly the youngest. What do we say? Old enough to know and young enough to do. I am seeking to be the president of the Law Society of Kenya because I am saying that my mandate right now is to do 3 things. To remind Kenyans that there are serious attempts to capture the country through various institutions, including the Law Society of Kenya. That has been said by state actors, and the tools to do that are people who are with me here on stage tonight. And I am saying that it is important that we make sure that we have independence of the bar. Young enough to know, old enough to do. I teach at the University of Nairobi. One of the courses I teach is law, democracy, and governance. I know what needs to get done. I have served as a council member of the Law Society. I serve as a Nairobi rep in council at the moment.
Right.
I have been raised and born in Mombasa, raised in Mombasa. I'm a member of the Mombasa Law Society as well as the Nairobi Law Society. I was also raised to some extent in Nyandarua and Moranga. I understand matters devolution. It is therefore extremely important to me that we strengthen the country, we make sure we have independence of the bar, we make sure that our institutions are working, we make sure that the Law Society branches are working, and that is the only way forward. And to say something before I wind up, that we have no room for capture as the Law Society of Kenya. We have enough young people in this country to make sure that their future is secure. Thank you very much.
You say. Peter, why do you want to be the president of the Law Society of Kenya?
Thank you very much, Sam. If you look at the Law Society of Kenya as it is, one can say that Law Society of Kenya is a dead institution. There are so many things happening in terms of protecting practice. Advocates in Kenya are really suffering. Myself, I've done a SWOT analysis on the legal sector in Kenya. And Law Society of Kenya being a trade union for advocates, it's not doing what it's supposed to do to protect the practitioner who is suffering, especially the young legal practitioners. And that really motivates me. If you look at our practicing space, you have key areas of legal practice which have been taken away. You have WIBA taken away from us. Accountants are doing legal work. You have surveyors and brokers who are deep in conveyancing sector. They do more than 40% of our work. So as we speak, I can confidently say here in to my colleagues, the advocates, that unless we have strategic, consequential, and a pushy leadership at the Law Society of Kenya, a leadership that focuses on the practitioner. For the first time in this country, we have a practitioner who has been there for 16 years. That is myself. I understand where the shoe pinches. What it means is that we don't want persons to go at LSK to lead by citing other reasons. For example, career profiling, you go there for other purposes,
okay.
For money, etc. We need a practitioner who understands the challenges which face colleagues to lead the Law Society of Kenya, and that is myself.
All right. Faith, you've been the vice president for the last 2 years. Why do you want to be president now? In a minute.
As the next president of the Law Society of Kenya, I stand as a bridge of the young lawyers who are looking at the Law Society to help them grow in the legal profession, to help the expectations of the opportunities that they will have, and also help them harness that they enjoy the benefits of working hard and receiving those fruits. I also stand as the bridge of the senior bar who have laid the foundation for us and are looking to enjoy what they have put in place and their aspirations for a stable, progressive bar. The PSP agenda that I stand by is that we'll have the voice of the Law Society to stand for the rule of law. We will be the bar that continues to fight for advocates in their practice spaces. We have started the journey. We are building. We put our house in order the last 2 years. We are looking for progress. We are looking how can we harness opportunities for young lawyers? How can we ensure that the way we work together as a team with the branches to ensure their growth, to ensure practice spaces expand, that we look at where is the trajectory? How are we building on the assets of with the various justice actors that we work with, that we're able to see the growth of the Law Society. That's why I'm the best placed with the experience that I've had, not only of these 2 years, but beyond the 2 years. Right. I am the best placed to be the next president of the Law Society of Kenya.
Bernard, same question. Why do you want to be the president?
Thank you very much, Sam. I have so much to do for the Law Society of Kenya for the reason that in the last 9 years, I have led the society at the branch for 5 years, 4 years at the national office. I have been involved in a number of public interest litigation cases that touch on practitioners, that touch on the judiciary, that touch on the people of Kenya, like the speed gun case, the Mumo Matemo case, and going forward, I have a robust plan, which is mentorship and welfare, accountability of the society, checked institutions, and expansion of opportunities for about 10,000 lawyers admitted in the last 5 years. Kipkoech Bernard Ngetich, KBN, is tried, is independent, is sober, honest, objective, and is the man of the moment, the man of the season, the man to take the Law Society of Kenya and the Republic of Kenya to the next level. Thank you.
Caroline, you've been a vice president and also a council member. You came in, I think, second last time during the election. Why again do you want to be the president of the Law Society of Kenya?
Thank you, Sam. A society is as strong as its most vulnerable member. Like you've heard when they were highlighting my experience, I have served the Law Society in different capacities. In the history of the Law Society, I am the only person who has had the first of the firsts. Why do I say so? Since 1948, there has been nobody who has established a sexual and anti-bullying policy to ensure that there's conducive working environment for the society. That I did in 2018. In the history of the Law Society, nobody has ever established an endowment fund to ensure that members in financial crisis are taken care of. In the history of the Law Society, nobody has ever established, other than Caroline Kamende Daudi, free toll lines to ensure that whenever our members are in distress, they can call free of charge and their calls will be answered. Some, I come with experience on welfare. Indeed, the Law Society of Kenya members call me Mama Welfare because the bar that I set when I served as the Vice President and as the Nairobi representative, nobody else has reached the bar that I set on welfare. Mm-hmm. I equally come with experience on protection of the rule of law and also experience on protection of members' interests and welfare. I came into office in 2022 when COVID struck. Again, I was at the call and beck of all our members who were in distress.
Right.
I have 5-point agenda, and my manifesto mirrors...
We'll get to that. You've already exceeded your 1 minute, but you'll be detailing that in the subsequent questions. And let me get to you, Bernard, because you're talking about the question of mentorship and welfare of the members of the society. I don't know, what is your appreciation of the challenges that legal practitioners and the members of the Law Society of Kenya today have to go through, even as you seek solutions to that?
Thank you very much. There are a myriad of problems that lawyers today in Kenya face. I would want to put these problems into 3 compartments. We have the senior bar, we have the middle bar, and the young bar. The young bar, and I have said in the last 5 years, we've admitted about 10,000 of them do not have employment. Where they have employment, you have about half of them being completely underpaid. About a quarter of the 10,000 have no social security. They do not have savings. They do not have any investment. They do not have necessary social security covers. And over and above that, they are overcharged by the Law Society of Kenya when it comes to payment of CPD fees, when it comes to payment of PC fees. The middle bar is struggling to get fees, is struggling to be able to put their feet on the ground, because when it comes to payment of their fees, they face challenges amongst their clientele. They want more information on how to do advocate-client bill of costs, and the advocate remuneration order, which was done in 2014, has not been amended for the last 8 years. This is a problem that affects the young bar, the middle bar, and the senior bar. And when you come to the senior bar is facing a backlash from the young bar because the young bar is expecting much from the senior bar, and the senior bar is not able to provide. It's not able to provide good remuneration, good working environment, and they are becoming fewer and fewer by the day. Some of them don't have a pension scheme. Some of them also have not been able to put in place sufficient savings, and issues to do with health are also cropping in. So we have a society which speaks for the public, which is supposed to protect the rule of law, but when you look inside into the membership, there are several challenges. I want to mention very quickly that even as we talk, we also have a proliferation of quacks. The other day, we had a mercenary in our AGM who was shutting down members of the Law Society of Kenya. The other day, we've seen expenditure of council skyrocket to about 20 million shillings on international travel alone. We've also had the challenge of practice in most of the courts, like the Court of Appeal, almost grinding to a halt, with appeals now being fixed from the year 2018-2017. A myriad of problems, Sam. But Kipkoech Bernard Ngetich, who has 9 years experience as a solution. I will provide the solution.
Right. Peter, what are the challenges that you see? Because there's that highlighting of the challenges, especially for the young bar.
Yes, yes.
Do you have solutions to that? Or is it a challenge that you don't associate with?
Myself, I have grown up from the very bottom of legal practice, set up a firm, and I know the challenges which young bar is experiencing, which in my view requires a serious and strategic leadership at the top of the Law Society of Kenya. As we speak, in the next 10 years, we estimate that there will be 30,000 new advocates in the legal profession. The reality of the market is that the legal economy is shrinking, and therefore the space for the young practitioner is really very small. Look at the question of pupillage. It's very difficult for young legal practitioners to get pupillage placement. Secondly, when it comes to employment, you'll be surprised on the level of unemployment in the legal sector. So there are so many advocates who don't have work, so many lawyers who, when they get work, they're underpaid. And then the problem is compounded by the fact that the declining legal economy, which has been invaded by quacks, everyone taking over our space, everyone attempting to practice law. That declining space means that there is declining income within law firms. So when law firms have declining income, they don't pay young lawyers well. So what we need to do as a strategy to protect the young legal practitioners is, one, we need to ensure that we plant short-term, medium-term, and long-term seeds for the reform of the legal profession in Kenya. Now, in terms of the reforming the legal profession in Kenya, we need to ensure that the young legal practitioners, first of all, have space to practice. So we need to pass lobby parliament to ensure that we pass appropriate policy and legal reforms to protect our space, to accommodate the young legal practitioner. Secondly, on the question of structural problems within the law society of Kenya that impede legal practice, we need to ensure that we have preference schemes for the young legal practitioners so that they get to work. For example, the field of small claims. Can we all agree that small claims should be done by young legal practitioners, whether on their own or employed by senior lawyers? What about the question of PC? Can we adopt the Nigerian model of PC payment, practice certificate fees payment? So that myself, I have 16 years in legal practice with a reasonable income. Why should I pay the same PC fees together with a young legal practitioner who was admitted yesterday? So we need to ensure that we are sensitive to the concerns of young legal practitioners. Young legal practitioners need structured and serious mentorship so that they can venture into emerging areas of legal practice as a way of competing. Remember that the legal economy is deeply capitalistic. So that for you to be relevant in this economy, you must offer something which the market needs. That is why in my manifesto, I'm express clear and unequivocal that we must venture into emerging areas of legal practice to ensure that we get income for the young legal practitioner. And one of the major areas of legal practice which we must venture into is climate change litigation, policy and legislative support. Thank you.
For you, Harriet, so the same question about the challenges that members face, and it's coming out that the question of the young bar is pertinent. How do you describe it and the solution?
You know, the important thing is that for us to actually be able to take care of our entire bar, not just the young bar, but we also have PWDs within the Law Society of Kenya. We also have young nursing mothers that are coming up. So the question, for instance, of practicing certificates is extremely important, because without a practicing certificate, then you cannot practice law. So my proposal and what I intend to do with respect to that is on the practicing certificates, nursing mothers, it is waived automatically. Currently, you have to apply, and there's an entire rigorous process, and sometimes the documents can be sent back for you to confirm, and then council will sit and decide. So the entire waiver, as a matter of fact, and automatic for nursing mothers, and also for the first 3 years, the young advocates who have been admitted should not have to pay practicing certificates for their first 3 years because they haven't yet earned enough to be able to, for them to be able to actually practice. The other thing that is extremely important, and one of my colleagues has said, is with respect to the shrinking practice space. And one of the challenges that we find is that our Advocates Act, as it currently is, sections 12 and 13, they allow for certain privileges for advocates from Uganda, Tanzania, and the Commonwealth. My priority, and right now I've been pushing for it as the co-convener of the Cross-Border Practice Committee, is that, one, we must have strategic collaborations, so that we must ask ourselves, which are those jurisdictions that will actually give us reciprocity? And my proposal there will be to amend the Act to provide for the discretion of the Law Society of Kenya to enter into bilaterals, so that if we decide today that the UK is working, or let's say even South Africa that got the visa waiver the other day, if South Africa is working for us as advocates and many of our people would want to go and practice there, then we can get into a bilateral with their bar association without necessarily requiring an amendment to statute. That way, we only allow for those who benefit our members, and then we're able to have that system of reciprocity. Otherwise, then we'll be allowing for other jurisdictions to come in, and our members are not getting reciprocity. That way, we continue to shrink, and our young lawyers will continue to suffer.
Would that require concurrence by Parliament, or it's just yourselves as a society?
So that is why I said it will require a constitutional amendment. A few months ago, JLAC and the Office of the AG tried to introduce an amendment to say that we should expand the scope to go beyond Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and the Commonwealth, to add Rwanda and Burundi. And we even, as a co-convener for the Cross-Border Practice Committee, suggested let's take it to the members so that they also have the buy-in. And the unanimous position is this: it is important that we're not just having a conversation about two countries. It's a question about globally, where members want to go, let them be enabled to go. Right. So that's the basis of asking for reciprocity. And the other thing that I would like to mention is that the issue also of beyond the nursing mothers that I've mentioned, beyond the young lawyers, beyond our, there's also the question of in-house counsel as well, who have traditionally felt forgotten and neglected. And that's why when I got into counsel, even though I have my own practice and I litigate, I chose to also co-convene their committee.
All right.
We have helped them be included, and the agenda is that we must also have specific aspects, even in terms of nomination, because the Law Society of Kenya, again, the independence of the bar that I'm talking about, we have many members who require and who will qualify for nomination on some of these positions. I will publish to the members an objective criteria through which boards will be filled, through which opportunities will be given to all members, so that even if you're young and you are qualified, you certainly get a job.
All right. Now, you say, Faith, that you're the bridge between the young bar and the senior bar. Why are you being a bridge as you appreciate the challenges that the membership is witnessing?
Now, the reality is at the Law Society of Kenya is that over a period of time, there's been a burgeoning rift between the young bar and the senior bar. The question of respect, mutual respect between one another, the question of how you treat them, the question is how you sit together and work together. And the reality is the online courts have not helped, because at least you'd meet and sit together, and I think seniors would always take the grace that when you meet them somewhere for tea, they would always buy you a cup of tea. That's the beauty of the nobility of our profession. Your senior will always pick up the tab. But that reality is the problem we have today. Why I say I'm the bridge is that when I got into council as the vice president, I took up mentorship to institutionalize it under that office. I started as the patron of the Law Students Association of Kenya, where I helped them start up. Why? Because we need to also mentor who are the young lawyers coming into the bar. Secondly, the mentorship program at the Law Society of Kenya, two-pronged. One, the Inua Wakili series, where we started to mentor young advocates on the new areas of practice, as well as how do you brand yourself, how do you run a law firm, soft skills that you need to build yourself as a young lawyer in the profession. Also meeting different professionals in the industry, in-house, those work in the UN, amongst other places. What are the opportunities if you go to academia, if you join the in-house council, amongst others. As well as the mentorship program with the Office of the Chief Justice. And the aim at that particular point was we had since admitted 2,200. And the question that we were asking ourselves was, where do we place these young lawyers? I get a lot of calls all the time. I'm looking for pupillage. I'm looking for a job opportunity. I've lost this job. I'm struggling. And the reality is you cannot turn a deaf eye or a deaf ear to all these complaints that are raised against you. So that mentorship program, the aim was that we give young lawyers opportunity to get briefs for for them to do matters of children in conflict with the law and family matters. And also the senior bar came in, committed that they would guide and support these young lawyers in the briefs they take. It gave an opportunity for the seniors also to come back and give back to the society. We have a number of seniors now, even over 18 years, who have committed to this venture. They've said they see the opportunity to also work with the young lawyers so that there's that general good understanding. And when we're talking about the young lawyers, I agree there's the question of medical cover, but it's not just for the young lawyers. It is also for the seniors as well. We have seniors who fall sick. By having a medical cover, which is part of my agenda, that covers all members, then we're able to take care of the welfare of all our members. We need the building that I hope to see to its fruition, the Wakili Tower that LSK is starting in that direction. My hope is to have...
But as you mentioned, that medical cover that will cater for every member of the society, how do you plan to do that?
I want to have a medical cover that is basic. I tried the Bupa cover during my tenure, and the kind of cover that we looked at were coming from the period of COVID. What would happen, most insurance companies, the moment you were tested for COVID, you would not be treated. They would say you're being treated for COVID. So that's how we got that international cover, and our members took it up. It ended sometimes this year in January. What I'm looking at is a basic cover that even if it's inpatient for 500,000, but let's have something to start with. And what I'm benchmarking with is the Rwandan bar. The Rwandan bar started the same, opting in, allowing members to opt in. Then they made it compulsory. And now they're taking care of all their members. They have even set a department that runs healthcare for their members. So this is something that if at Rwandan bar...
So how is the funding of that cover?
The members contribute to that cover.
Have you identified how much that will...
I hope that even we start with the 30,000. That's what I want to do, that we start, if we put it for everyone, we'll be able to collect enough money that we'll be able to start our cover. Of course, we'll do public participation and ask our members, but that's the kind of buying. And for even the young lawyers, even if it's paying in different ranges of installments, but you have a medical cover that covers you for the entire year.
Okay. All right. So you said that they call you Mama Welfare, right? And as you can listen from your colleagues here, they are highlighting some of the challenges that the legal profession is facing, whether it's the challenges of the legal practice economy, or even what she's highlighting here about medical cover and the challenges that people are facing. Since you've been there, what do you think would work to help the welfare of not just the members, but also looking at the prospects of the legal profession?
Thank you, Sam. Indeed, from outside, if you look at the legal profession, we all look like we are thriving, but that is not the correct position. And this problem, especially the legal problems and also the welfare issues and the struggling situation of our members, cuts across both established members and young bar, but more so among the young bar, because substantially we've had an increase of the numbers. There was a solution that was offered some times back when we opened up practice, in the sense that one did not need to practice for 2 years under somebody so that they can open a law firm. How do we then help our members? Charity begins at home. We can start, and one of my key agendas is to initiate review of the advocate's remuneration order. You could sit in that office and earn nothing. We need to align. And one of my first call of duty is to initiate that through Parliament, so that we also bring the current challenges that we are facing, economic challenges, in tandem with that remuneration order. Secondly, the reason they called me Mama Welfare is because for the longest time, I had been doing fundraising for members in crisis. Literally during COVID, I started a care package for lawyers. And I called upon the members, especially the senior members of the bar, to raise bonga points and money so that I can buy members across the country food, basically food. Because we woke up one day and the country was closed. Whether you are an established member or not, it hit us very hard. Moving forward, other than reviewing the act, we need to protect the practice space that we have. We already have lost some practice spaces like WIBA.
Right.
So having been there, and what I saw and what I experienced and what I too initiated was to monitor legislation. During our term, when I served as the vice president, we were almost losing the small claims work.
Right.
And we put our foot forward. We filed a PIL case, and that is how inclusion of lawyers came to the act. Other than that, I intend to collaborate with other stakeholders so that we can remove some of the barriers. For example, for somebody to go and work at the judiciary, when you're a young lawyer, you're required to have had 3 years experience. Post-admission, where do you hang? Where do you stay until you acquire that experience? So I intend to collaborate so that we can remove some of these stiff requirements. I was very impressed last time when the DPP announced for positions, and I saw that they had actually shortlisted some of our members who were admitted late last year.
All right.
Yes.
We'll get more about that. But let me hear from you, Peter, because there has been this accusation in this country that even as lawyers want to protect the profession,
yes,
they are some of the most corrupt in this country. What are your comments about the integrity of lawyers who are members of the society, and how do you plan to deal with the challenges that are experienced in there?
Yeah, that's a comment which we've seen from some members of the public. And as we speak, it is something that we need to do some introspection on as a legal profession. We need to establish and build confidence systems with members of the public. Not all members of the legal profession are corrupt. That needs to be known. More than 95% of lawyers in Kenya are good lawyers. They earn their bread lawfully. However, there are a few of them which we have internal mechanisms to deal with. And one of my initiatives when elected LSK president is to ensure that we expedite those cases that our colleagues have at the disciplinary tribunal, so that we are able to resolve them, to be able to build back public confidence in the law society. But secondly, members of the public also need to know that not every person who styles himself as a lawyer is actually a lawyer for purposes of offering legal services. So what we need to do, and what we'll do under my tenure, is to ensure that Law Society of Kenya runs adverts in the media. We will come to radio, we'll come to TV, to ensure that you need to know how to engage an advocate as a member of the public.
So your specific proposal to deal with that question, what is it?
On the question of integrity in the legal profession, it's just a question of reinforcing, because the statistics that we have is that most of this complaint is from lawyers who have been struck off the role of advocates.
Is that so, Faith? You're still the vice president there, so you would know. Who are these?
I would dare say that we have to admit there are instances of our own very own who have gone a bit rogue. And the question is, what are we doing? Currently, the disciplinary committee of the Law Society of Kenya has sittings once a week. And that's a challenge that we need to look into, that are we going to have the disciplinary committee sitting regularly like the other tribunals? Because the challenge is members of the public place their complaints, but you feel the matter is not moving because the sittings are once a week. So how can we have that as a regular basis? But also, another challenge that we need to see how we can work with our stakeholders, the judiciary. I believe that by working with the judiciary, they can help us flag these masqueraders, help us flag people who don't have practicing certificates. An idea we have been floating is how our system, we're since working with the judiciary in terms of how we are bringing up our practicing certificates. How can we ensure that our systems can talk to one another, that a judge, once you read your PC number or in your ID with the QR code, they'll be able to tell, are you an advocate or not? Further, we have been working with BRS to ensure that we look into all the companies that are being registered so that we are able to count who are these people often opening this law firm.
I'm looking for your plan.
And consultancies.
I'm looking for your plan.
Yes, that is my plan as president, that I would work with the judiciary, I'd work with BRS as well, that we can start looking who are these people who are opening law firms, law consultancies, that we'll be able to track who are our people and how can we track them down on them. With regards to And for the complaints to the members of the public is how I would want to look into how to make the disciplinary committee more permanent in terms of they start having regular sittings so that these matters can move. And
what
secondly,
would that require?
It will require us to put in more funding as well, because they sit more of like pro bono, and that's why they sit once a week. They're still also running their law firms. There was the idea to take it back to the judiciary, which we don't want. And so it's up to us, even as the Law Society, to see how we can fund the disciplinary committee, that we can have more regular sittings, so that these complaints can be heard expeditiously.
Yes, I want to hear your take, Bernard, on that particular issue of the integrity. Is it the challenge of the complaints tribunal not sitting as often as it should, or is it a question of training or the inadequacies of the economy? What is it?
Thank you, Sam. And I would want to look at the issue of corruption, the issue of integrity from a wider spectrum. I argued the Mumo Matemo case in 2014 in the Court of Appeal. I have also argued the case of Nurdin Haji and President William Ruto on his appointment as Director General on the basis of Chapter 6. I have so much on this aspect. I look at the issue of corruption in this country as a systemic, as an endemic problem. So much so that if I'm elected as a president, I have a two-pronged approach to tackling corruption. Fast forward, I would, with council, constitute a task force made of lawyers across the country, every nook and cranny of this country, chaired by a senior counsel. Let us collect evidence on an ad hoc basis against cabinet secretaries, and some corruption in Kenya is cooked and served at the executive level. It is consumed in parliament, judiciary, private sector, and across the country. This task force that I would constitute to collect evidence across the country. This evidence would be discussed by a general meeting of lawyers, and then on the basis of the discussion of an AGM, we will forward to JSC where relevant, we forward to Parliamentary Service Commission where relevant, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission where relevant. That is my first-pronged approach. The second approach is to open a dialogue in this country led by the Law Society of Kenya through the branches and the chapters. Corruption is at the police station. If you are involved in an accident today, Sam, and you report at the police station, the police officer would require some tea. If you went to the lands officers today to get an official search, you would need to put in 1,000 shillings so that you carry your search within 2 weeks. Otherwise, it will take a month or many days. If you went to a public hospital, you would be given a very lengthy prescription per director to go and purchase drugs across the road out of the hospital in a chemist or a pharmacy belonging to a doctor. So we would want to open a dialogue in the country where Kenyans would come openly and discuss corruption. The issue of the Advocates Disciplinary Committee would be involved on matters related to lawyers. The issue of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission would deal with the relevant people. But for me, corruption is endemic, it is systemic, and it is a bigger conversation. Having heard the president who retired recently saying Kenya loses 2 billion shillings every day. That is about 730 billion annually. And I heard the head of public service and secretary to cabinet, Felix Koskei, saying they have nothing to dispute those figures and they are researching on the same. Absent anything to countermand the same, this country loses 730 billion annually. We must have a national conversation, and as president of the Law Society of Kenya, I would lead the conversation in a two-pronged approach.
All right, I'll get to you, Harriet and Caroline, about this particular question, but I want us to cross over to Jeff with his panel to hear some feedback from that side. Jeff?
That's right, Sam. Thanks so much for that. And joining me in the studios, outgoing LSK President Eric Theory and Senior Counsel Paul Mwangi. Gentlemen, you've heard the discussion, you've heard the debate so far. I'm hearing a lot of proliferation of quacks. I'm hearing a lot of young bar, middle bar, senior bar, the disparities. And then, the question is, what should they be talking about, Eric?
No, I think they are having the conversation that the lawyers want to hear. The Law Society is a body that has an expansive mandate. It has a mandate to the members of the Law Society. It has a broader mandate to the members of the public. And I think that there is a very intricate interplay of the work that the Law Society does in ensuring the rule of law, that we are a country that is governed by the administration of justice. And that in itself, when a country is stable, when a country has a predictable legal regime, then it encourages the economy to grow. And when the economy is growing, it is the lawyers who put together those commercial transactions. It is the lawyers who then go to the courts and participate in dispute resolution. And that's why there's that interplay, because you see, for us as a legal profession, the independence, for example, of the judiciary is extremely critical to the welfare of our members. And that's why you can tell that all the contestants are looking at how they then deal with the question of welfare of members. And the concerns that are now coming up are the concerns that our members as a law society experience on a day-to-day as they interact within the profession. But then again, and I'm sure that that opportunity will be presented to the candidates, I'm sure the members of the public would want to know where the contestants' view or vision is in terms of how the law society can be relevant to the lives of the ordinary mwananchi out there.
Yeah, Senior Counsel, do you like what you're hearing?
Not that much, because I was hoping I would hear more about the state of the profession. Over the years, law society has painted itself into a corner, and we address less and less about the profession in Kenya. Where are we as a profession? How do we make this profession, give people livelihoods? How do we make it profitable? I didn't hear much about what we are going to do with this profession. We are talking about now, I think, 16,000 lawyers holding practicing certificates. Yeah. Very soon I think we're taking in more than 2,000 lawyers every year. This economy can't handle that. We are now becoming a mob of lawyers. We are no longer a profession. So what are we going to do about that? And what is the leadership of the law society that's coming in going to do? Do we need to stop this trend of taking in 2,000 people, because this economy cannot handle that? And if we are going to do that, and we still have universities giving, training people and giving them law degrees, how do we separate so that getting a law degree is not an automatic right to being a member of the bar? And that happens in other countries. So how do we separate and say, go to university, take your law degree? That has nothing to do with the profession. That's just one of the qualifications that you must come in and then now apply to join the bar. Or do we go to the point of deciding that we are going to make law now, possibly it's time we made law a postgraduate course, and so that we stem this tide? Number two, all those candidates are all relatively young. But I was waiting for somebody to address the fact that we now have a public policy that reserves 30% of all work in all public institutions for young lawyers and for women. Public bodies in Kenya spend billions of shillings in legal fees. I think the city, county, the Nairobi County, I think, was once on record, I think, owing something like 2 billion, 3 billion in legal fees. Right. But who collects this money? So it's a few lawyers. So how do we ensure that the amount of money that the public institutions are spending on legal fees is being well distributed? How is the law society leadership coming in going to ensure that every public body is giving 30% of all its work to young lawyers, which is lawyers below the age of 35, to law firms that are exclusively owned by young lawyers and by women? And how do you ensure, and not just in terms of the amount of cases you give out, but even in terms of money? If last year you spent 1 billion shillings in legal fees, you must be able to show how 300 million of that money went to young lawyers and women. Then we can start talking about having a profession that is going to afford people and young lawyers livelihoods.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I want to take a quick break, come back. And Eric, I want to ask you a question. There are a lot of critics who say you didn't do enough to rein in rogue lawyers. That's what they say. I want to ask you that when we come back. And Senior Counsel, you've been talking a lot about these young lawyers. Looks like you're a little worried about the demographic of the lawyers out there. Is it because
I think the demographic is natural. That is going to happen.
Is it because you and I are a little senior, or
no, that's a natural trend, and it has every time new lawyers come into the profession. That happened after independence.
Right.
That there was a lot of changes in the law society because young lawyers came into the profession.
All right, hold that thought. We're going to take a break. Come back. Plenty more ahead, folks. We're talking to all the 5 candidates running for president of the LSK and experts here in Studio A, paving the way forward. Keep tweeting at Kwenanga Jeff, at Sam Gitugu, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is JK Live. JK Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.